property is about 12 miles from a little town called Cedar Key, which is actually an island. It's a famous island in Florida. It's actually one of many islands out on the Gulf of Mexico. And the island has a lot of history with the Civil War. There's about 350 people who live there. And my property is further into the mainland, out in the swamp area. I've had the property since 1985. And the property's in the middle of hundreds of thousands of acres of state property. It's all swampland. And I've been hunting since I was 40 years old and spent 180 days a year in the swamps. And I've had every type of experience you can think of out here. I've had everything from Bigfoot encounters, lots of UFO encounters, close encounters, and it's always with a witness. Amazing spirit encounters. I've had 6 hours of missing time after I was in my deer stand in a black triangular craft parked right over the top of me at noon. And next thing I knew, it was 6 p.m. Each time we've had an encounter or a sighting, or I've had at least one witness with me, if not more. First one started in 93, and they're good for about every 6 months. About every 6 months we had something happen. Very few people actually have sightings of a Bigfoot, but I mean, this is not definitive proof because we didn't see it, but being a hunter my whole life, and I spent almost 200 days a year in the woods, I know what a dead animal smells like. I know what a skunk smells like. This was exactly what eyewitnesses who have seen it up close and smelled it. I mean, it smells like rotting cabbage, smells like a wet dog, a chicken coop all rolled up into one. It's paralyzing. When you get next to it, we walk down, we call the trail to our cabin from where we park our truck to the cabin, we call it the Trail of Tears. And every time you walk down the trail, something happens to scare somebody. So my two neighbors, Ron and Tim, his brother, they're my age, they're in their 40s. And we are walking to the cabin. It's at 2 o'clock in the morning. And we got to make about 3 or 4 trips to get all our stuff there from the truck. And on our second trip, we are halfway to the cabin, which is about 300 yards. We are stopped in our tracks by the most horrific smell you've ever. It wasn't swamp gas. It wasn't a skunk. Ron said, "Oh, that's a." I mean, all of us stopped and just stared at each other in the dark. And Ron was like, "That's a skunk," and I'm like, "That's not a skunk." Tim said, "That's not a skunk." It was. I mean, it was just horrific. That had to be a Sasquatch. Had to be standing right next to us. But a lot of people say, "Well, you didn't see it," so. Well, it's true, we didn't see it, but on the trip going back to get another load out of the truck, 8 minutes later, the smell was completely gone. So if that was a skunk and he sprayed, that'd be there for a week. So my nephew, his sister's husband, they're in their 30s and they're walking down the trail to the cabin, and they really have no idea what happened, but it was not windy. And they're walking to the cabin, and all of a sudden, his brother-in-law, my nephew's brother-in-law, gets a handful of sand and rock thrown in his face. And you're walking down a trail, it's very thick and dense on both sides. So something could be standing 3 feet off the trail and you wouldn't see it. Florida woods, and they're really thick. Most of it's thick. We got some trails out there, but something could be standing 5 feet from you out there in high noon, and you would not know it. The only way you know it is if you smelled it. I took a military. A guy just got out of the military and leave. He's in his 20s. He's my son's buddy. And I asked him, I said, "You ever had a paranormal experience?" He's like, "No, no, Eric." And I was like, "Well, you're going to have one when you get up to this place." He's like, "Well, I don't believe in that." Sure enough, first day up there, he walks behind our cabin, about 100 yards away from the cabin, and out of this thick swamp woods comes this huge log and goes whipping right by his head. And based on what I've seen, when a Sasquatch throws a rock or a piece of lumber, or a branch, it seems like they go out of their way to get near you but not hit you. It's like if they hit you, they know, because they're gonna have a posse come after them if they hurt somebody. That's always been my thoughts on it. But evidently this log came really close to his head. You know, he's in the military, and this guy was really pissed. And he went running all around the woods trying to find out who did it. And it weighed about 50 pounds, and it was really whipped at him pretty hard. So there's nobody out there nobody out there would have done that. Probably more Bigfoot sightings here than any other place in America. I don't care if you're in Washington, Skookum Meadows. I mean, look at the guns on that guy.
Well, what do they call them? What do the Native Americans call these guys?
Bagwajiwanini.
Are you making that up?
Nope.
What?
The Bagwajiwanini.
Bagwajiwanini. Hopefully, did I say it right?
Or, like the white man translates to basket man.
Well, what do you mean by basket
They put
man?
little kids in a basket if you're bad.
Is that a Native American tale, or is that...
Well, people really come up missing.
Oh.
Over 1 million people a year come up missing that go into national parks, never to be found again. I discovered this vortex about 3 years ago, and so far I've taken about 25 people here, and everybody's experienced it. But
so usually something shows up over here.
Well, this is a vortex. When I park the truck, see right here when I park the truck? See if you feel anything. Oh well. There's definitely something going on here too.
You feel it?
Yeah, it feels like we're going backwards, doesn't it? Check that out.
Well, the energies feel a lot lighter.
Yeah, look at the windshield. Look outside the windshield. Don't look at the camera. Look outside the windshield. Doesn't it feel like we're rolling backwards slightly?
But are we?
Nope. I've driven around everywhere in here, and I could not find another spot that does that.
Are those the cypress knees you were talking about that are deadly?
Yeah, you don't want to trip and fall on one of those.
Right. It's just like a huge glen of this stuff as far as the eye can see. It's a great way for something to hide in there and just jump out and grab you.
It goes miles.
Have you tried traversing any? It's like got a canoe and...
Usually this is dry in here. Usually it's just...
Like during the summertime?
Usually it's like this underneath your feet.
So in the summertime this is pretty much all dried out?
Yeah, well, half the year it's dry. Sometimes it goes wet all year. Sometimes, when I first got to the place, it was dry for 10 years. There's no water in here for 10 years. over the trail over there was a black triangular craft. And I remember it had lights going around. It looked like red and blue and white lights that were circling. It was actually kind of weird because it was a triangular craft, but it had lights blinking on the side of it. And it was moving about 5 miles an hour over the treetops. And the treetops were about 30 feet high over there. And it was just on top of the trees moving this way toward the north. He pointed out, I saw his eyes. He was standing about where you are, and his eyes were huge, like saucer shaped. And he pointed up, I saw it. And then right when I saw it, I got about 5 seconds before it went over the trees and I couldn't see it any further, but it was right there. So that was the beginning of the black triangular craft. So we've seen them probably 4 times since '94 within this sector of land right here, which is about, it'd be about 55 acres here within the middle of hundreds and hundreds, thousands of acres of state land, all wilderness. It's called the Nature's Coast on Florida, if you want to look that up. But it was in 1994. I came out here with my brother for a short hunt, and we're going to be back by dinner time, 6 o'clock. That was the plan. My deer stand was on this tree, which was a lot shorter back in '94. It was about, I would say probably 8 to 10 feet shorter. Maybe not that much, about 6 feet. And I had a wooden deer stand, which was about 10 foot tall. They're made out of 10-foot 2x4s. I was sitting right there facing south. So facing south, as soon as I sat down at noon, I checked my watch. As soon as I sat down, what sounded like, or what the thoughts came into my mind, I believe today it was a form of what extraterrestrials use as, or whoever these entities were in this craft, but it was a telepathic, like a hypnosis induction. And what I didn't hear any specific voice in my head. I heard a voice, but back then I was a lot younger, 25, and I didn't really realize, listen for a female voice or a male, but it was a very strange dialogue that took place. And as soon as I sat down, it said, back then I thought it was my own thoughts for years after that, but after all these episodes I've had later of telepathic, basically instructions, I recognize it now. It's a woman's voice. It sounds like she's 30 years old or around that age, a young sounding voice. And it said, Eric, look at the ground, find the largest leaf on the ground. Focus on that leaf. Don't take your eyes off that leaf. Don't move your hands. Don't move your arms. Keep your legs still. Don't move your eyebrows. Don't look around. Just look at the leaf. Keep focusing on that leaf. If you keep looking at that leaf, you'll get your trophy. And I did. I picked the largest leaf on the ground. Back then, the leaves during that season, it was different. They were, not as decomposed. They were definitely, I saw a huge leaf on the ground. That was the first thing I put my eyes on. And I didn't take my eyes off it. I didn't look around. I didn't, adjust everything. I didn't tie myself to the tree like you usually do. I just instantly, that was what I did. And at about probably a paragraph of dialogue, I then heard a sound. Being a plumber my whole life, it's absolutely what the sound was like. It sounded like gas escaping from a pipe, like taking a ball valve and cracking it and then hearing gas escape. And it sounded like a really loud hiss. It was definitely some sort of gas. And it was absolutely a sound that you would not hear in nature. I spend around 200 days a year hunting or camping out in the woods, and I've never heard a sound anything like that in my life. So I never took my eyes off the leaf, and then I was hearing words like, or a dialogue, keep looking at the leaf. The sound's getting closer. You'll know soon enough what the sound is. And the sound is getting louder, and it was coming from this direction, which would be west. or north-south. Actually, west-southwest, mostly west. It was coming from this direction. I can hear it from my right ear. And it was definitely getting louder and louder. And it probably, what the span of time that I perceived was probably about 3 to 5 minutes. And the next thing I know was this was at noon, everything was much darker. It was like, it was like at the end of the day at dusk. That was the first thing I noticed. And then what made me think of is the sound was much louder. Something was over my head. I looked up and I saw a triangular craft with the nose of it facing toward the east. And it was moving, it was moving at about 1 mile an hour. It's just barely moving so I could see the direction it was going in, but it was right on top of that treetop. If I was on top of that tree, I just could have thrown a stone underhanded and touched the bottom of it. I mean, it was like 5 feet over the trees, which would at the time put it about 30 feet, 40 feet off the ground. At the moment I noticed that craft, I had a Ruger Mini 30 carbine with me with a 5-round clip in it. And my first instinct was a defensive reaction, and I picked it up, aimed it at the craft. I thought it was trying to suck me up. I don't want to say at the time, I don't know if I thought it was an alien craft, or I thought it was more leaning toward an alien craft because it had no rivets on it. It was like black onks, wasn't shiny, wasn't very shiny. It was a little shiny, but it was more on the shiny side than like gunmetal gray, what some people describe. I saw a couple lines on the bottom, but no, first thing I noticed was no landing gear, doors. It was definitely alien looking. So I thought it was there for me. It was directly over my head. Picked it up, and my thoughts were, you try to suck me up, and I'll shoot you out of the sky. The second that thought entered my head, that craft went, boom, it was gone. Same direction, took about a second and a half, it was out of sight, gone. It was about, I would say probably, it was really hard to judge because it was during summertime and the cloud cover, I was actually hog hunting back then at that time. The trees had all the leaves on them, so I could see almost the edges of the craft. So I would say, just guessing, probably 50 feet long, maybe 80 feet wide, I don't know. I only had a second to look at it. The second that entered my mind, it shot off. The sound of the gas escaping, what it sounded like, was gone. What my observation also was on the craft, which I found somebody in all these years of talking to people, I found a guy who saw this, what seemed to be the same craft over the desert going into Las Vegas, getting ready to go over the town into mountains. And it all along the back trailing edge looked like, and I also heard it looked like electric discharge, almost looked like little bits of Christmas tinsel, like you see on a tree, but it looked like like a fireworks sparkler. And it was all on the trailing edge, and I could actually hear, it was so close I could hear the faint noise of it crackling along the back. And that was my total observation of that. The front of the craft, it looked like it was hazy on the nose. Almost like this sucking of the gas escaping was actually like it was drawing something in. That was just opposite. The air looked like it was like steamy in the front of it, mostly in the front. Absolutely sure about what I saw along the trailing edge. I was very distinctive. Okay, the craft is gone. I noticed that I had, along the sides of my mouth, I had saliva streaming down both sides of my mouth. That's like from what I understand, it's like a sign that you're in shock. And I can remember back when I was 12 years old, I was lost in a Florida swamp, and it was dark out, and I was right in a pack of like 40 wild hogs, and I was bumping into them. I had no flashlight. My flashlight was dead. It was on in my back pocket all day. I had to shoot my gun to get through the pack of hogs. And I remember I was sidestepping. I was going in circles, large circles, trying to get away from them. And I remember I had saliva streaming out both sides of my mouth. So I know that's a sign that you're in some kind of a mild shock, or I don't know, maybe progressive shock. Okay, so at that point, I went down the ladder facing this way. I didn't go around backwards. Hit the ground, and then I got what felt like, it was almost like a leftover, like a command, and you could almost like feel it in your stomach. And I've had this happen in several times later with the contact with these entities, is you'll find your brother at the cabin. The cabin's about 250, 300 yards south. So I jumped on the trail, ran along the edge of the swamp, went to the cabin, found my brother, who was 11 years older than me. He was about 36 at the time. And at that point, the cabin was in the middle of an area where it was all the trees, everything was pruned out. So it was just one bush there, and I found my brother on his knees with his face buried in the bush. From what I've found out over the years, from personal experience, they have full control over your reality, they can make you go during the day. I don't know if it's with everybody or if it's with some people. They can make people go down roads that you would never go down, and to a rural area, and then they make you pull over and they take you there. Their mind has full reign over us.
Well, how do you resist that kind of control? Can you?
I don't know. I do know that from Bob Lazar's briefings that he had when he was, which I believe he's a very credible witness, that our government knows that people who are at the time taking certain medications, like I wasn't on any medication then at this time, but then again I don't have any memory of what they did for 6 hours. None of this looked like this back then. There was no pond here.
Oh, it was more
My
like
brother,
a puddle.
yeah, my brother dug this pond with a backhoe. I don't know, probably like 7 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, it's about 5 feet deep. But this was all water right here. This was, and you know, I've never seen it with water here since. But this, I'm sure the water was here with mud and all that. It was about, you know, it was 6 inches deep at least. The only thing that was here on this 1 acre right here was the cabin, which this side is facing south, and a very nice thick bush. It was one bush. But the bush that was here looks like the one that was in my front yard in the city. I mean, it was like, you know, it was thick. You couldn't see through it. It was like 3 feet wide by 4 feet tall. Well, I ran up to here and I came around here, and my words to my brother were exactly, "Bob, you wouldn't believe what I just saw. I just had a black triangular craft just try to suck me up or something." That's what I said. And my brother, I found him like this. Now my brother will dispute this. He'll dispute it. He'll dispute it with, he'll viciously dispute it. He'll say that he was here cleaning a 13-point buck that he shot. And that was absolutely not the fact. The fact was, and I remember it was a traumatic event. At least it was for me at that time. Even though I didn't think it was alien related. I just thought I had a UFO encounter. And I didn't know at the time I had missing time, even though I found out about 6 hours of missing time right here. I just thought we lost track of time, which is what seems to be the case with most people with these kind of interactions. But here was my brother. He was on his knees with his face in the bush, buried in the bush, with his hands down to his side, motionless. I come running up and I told him about the UFO. I thought he was looking for, I don't know, a lizard or something. It was a snake. I don't know what he was doing. He was like this. And after I said that to him, he goes, with his face momentarily just pulling out of the bush. That's where it started to come out of the bush. His face was in the bush about that far. I said, "Bob." I told him that, about the UFO, and he said, "Oh, really? Tell me about it." Just like in that kind of voice. Oh, it's kind of weird because, you know, my brother, he just doesn't like to talk about UFOs. He'll never continue the conversation, let's put it that way. Right where you're standing began some water. This was like a deep mud, marshy puddle thing about 30 feet, 20 feet in diameter, and it was filled with leaves and black mud. His brand new Browning 30-06 Browning bar, $900 gun he bought that week or the week before, was laying in that mud and I believe the barrel was in the water. Half the gun was submerged. And my next thing was, where is your gun, Bob? Where'd your gun go? And he goes, I helped him to his feet. He was like catatonic. Face was white and pasty and sweaty. And it wasn't that hot out. It was like 75, 78 degrees. And I said, Bob, what is your gun doing in the water over here? I walked over here. He said, oh, I don't know. And I pulled the gun out of the water. He took it from me. He was still kind of unsteady. And I said, damn, Bob, you really don't take care of your guns. I said, that's a $900 gun. And then at that point, I looked at my watch. I wore a wristwatch those years. And it was 6 o'clock or 6:05. It was 6 p.m. So 6 hours elapsed within 5 minutes. And I did not fall asleep in the deer stand. Back then, 25 years old, I never took naps in my deer stand. I got in a deer stand to hunt. When you get older, yeah, that happens. But back then, I was wide awake, and it happened the second I sat down. 6 hours missing time. He couldn't account for the time he had missing. He said, oh, shit. I said, Bob, we're supposed to be in St. Petersburg going out to eat tonight with the wives. And at that dinner, I told my sister and her husband, my brother, Bob here, his wife, my wife, Colleen, I told them about my close encounter with the UFO. So,
Did they believe you?
I can tell you though, my wife is concerned because my wife knows me. She knows I wouldn't make it up.
Well, were you having any experiences out here prior to that?
Only the interaction with a same type of craft, which to me looked a little smaller and differently shaped, that was on that trail right there. And that was probably a week or two before that with Lenny.
Were you having any interactions anywhere in your life at that time?
Not that I can remember.
Okay,
but here's the thing. My mother, she died in 2009. She told me right before, within a week of her dying, when I opened up and started telling about all these stories that I had, my parents, they're from the old school. My dad watches golf on TV. My mother watched what my dad watched. She never watched any of these extraterrestrial shows. And so in 2009, I told my mother about the stories, and reluctantly I told her, but my mom wanted to hear about it. My dad, he always thinks that stuff's funny. He don't believe in any of it, even though they had their own experiences similar to mine. My mom told me that, she goes, well, these beings that you're describing, that I had a later encounter in my bedroom when they look like a typical grays. I don't know if this is the same thing related or not, but she said, she goes, well, that's interesting. They used to come into my bedroom when I was a kid, like around 12 years old. I had my first memories of them. Her and her sister used to sleep in the bedroom. Her sister never had children. They wouldn't interact with her, only with my mother, all the time. They would come into her room, and she called them fairies. Her and her sister called them fairies. And her sister Phyllis also saw them. And my mom said that they interacted with her all the way up to my pregnancy with me in 65. So I said, wait a minute. I said, see, at this point in 2009, I was pretty much aware that extraterrestrial interaction goes in bloodlines. They stay in certain, probably, 4% of the population, from what I understand statistically, that people are reporting this. I said, okay, wait a minute. I said, you're talking about these, she says, yeah, they look like ants or something. She used some kind of a term. I said, so I immediately took a sheet of paper, blank, I drew 8 boxes, and I drew some, scary looking faces. Even one was like a clown face. And then I put the ones that I'm familiar with, that I had face-to-face encounter with, at the bottom, I believe it was the bottom left, the second one up. I turned around, I said, put a check mark on the one that you remember seeing in your room. She looked up and down, she goes, that one. I said, check it for me. She checked it. I just want to make sure that I had that. And it was I drew exactly what I interacted with. That was pretty mind-blowing. At that point, I knew that, what people were reporting, there's some truth to it. My memory is right about it. I distinctly remember every word that was said, and what galvanizes this. See, there's some kind of after all the hundreds of customers' homes I go into infiltration, highline homes, well-to-do people, Sometimes I get on this topic with them, or they bring it up, or something leads us to it. Come to find out, you know, they'll make comments like, oh, great, our plumber's an abductee. And then the wife or the husband will say, you know, somewhere along the lines, don't make fun of him. Don't you remember we had a flying saucer over the chicken coop, or one man in the front yard, and then after that, the next day, you wouldn't talk about it. You just kept telling me you didn't want to talk about it. Well, what I believe, there's some kind of hypnosis induction where these beings will play one spouse against the other, so that the other one, even if both of them believe, they don't want to talk about the event, and that keeps the event from getting analyzed or carried out further. My brother, he gets downright hostile over it. In fact, it's, you know, there's a couple of reasons. I mean, we still talk today, we're still friendly, but we are in no way going out to lunch every day and doing the things we do. But here's what galvanizes this, and I believe that proves my story is correct and my brother's is a screen memory, is the very next night, 140 miles south of this cabin in my house that I've lived in since '85, my wife and I were awakened at about 4 o'clock in the morning. We had our bedroom window open on a 4-lane, we live on a 4-lane busy road because it's a business. That's why I stay for the business. And at the time, she's now my ex-wife, but we had a 13-year relationship at that point, married for 10 years. We were awakened we were both sound asleep by this horrific, frightening sound of, like, it sounded like an air conditioning blade that was out of balance on a big commercial unit, like whoom, 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 whoom. And it was loud. It was up close and personal. We both immediately woke, turned around, got on our knees, and looked out the window. And we have a window, it's about 4 feet long. We're on a single story. About 12 feet outside the window was an orange sphere. It looked just like the sun setting right on the yard. And it was, the sound was coming from it. And it was there for at least 30 minutes, I remember of. Then it started lifting up. We didn't talk to each other. And I remember there was a couple thoughts that I do not believe were my own that came into my mind. I said, do not go get a camera. Do not call the police. Just keep watching, and don't talk to anybody. I believe that was one of the things. I can't attest to that, but I know it was 2 of those. And it lifted up after all this time watching it. And I remember thinking, another thought came to my mind was, we're 7 miles from MacDill Air Force Base. And the government tells you, you know, back in '94, the UFOs don't exist. And I got one in my front yard, and you can almost see the base from across the bay. I was like, I remember that thought came into my mind. But we both kept our eyes on it. Lifted up, very slowly negotiated around a tree, over the bush, over the 4-lane road, over an insurance agency, over the homes. It stayed to the right of the 8-lane, or whatever, how many lanes are on the big thoroughfare. And after about, it looked like 20, 30 minutes, a long time, it looked like a star in the sky. At that point, my wife turned to me, and she said these exact words. She said, what did you bring home from that property to our family? Or actually, what the F did you bring home to our family from that property? In so many words. It was exactly that, though. And I told her, I said, I don't know. The next thing I know, we both just lay down and go to sleep. The next morning at 6 a.m., just like always when I get up for work, I said, Colleen, what happened last night? What was that thing on the front yard? She wouldn't even look at me. She said, I don't want to talk about it. I was like, what do you mean you don't want to talk about it? That object or that orange thing on the front yard, what do you mean you want to talk about it? She goes, I don't want to talk about it. She started getting really angry. I was like, fine. Walked away, wait till she got out, went in there and got my coffee. She was upset with me about it. And it wasn't like, you know, it was some kind of a bunch of events where, you know, had nothing to do with the day before this missing time. But it was just, I believe it was put in her mind as a hypnotic suggestion. It wasn't very long after that. I don't know, I can't remember exactly how long, but, you know, it's not what, I don't believe it was what caused our divorce, but she definitely was a little bit different after that. Little standoffish. And it's not because she's a Christian and, you know, she thinks it's demonic. I believe it was just a really set suggestion done under hypnosis. And it didn't work with me. And it wasn't targeted for me. I believe it's only targeted for one side of the people. And that makes me think that they're looking at a certain individual, and I believe there's only one reason for that. I got no grand message that they ever gave me after all these interactions. You know, not like you're destroying the planet and all that. And it's always with a witness. I've got several witnesses, or at least one witness, except for one event. There are 2 events I've had that I didn't have a witness with me. But it always seems like it's, you know, because I was very closed-minded back then. I really did not believe in this stuff. In fact, you know, if somebody told me about an abduction, I'd make fun of them. So I don't do that anymore. And then that week didn't end with that event. That Friday, I was standing, this is when I got my first crystal clear telepathic communication. I was standing in my living room, 140 miles south of here. I'm looking out the window. It was about 5:30 in the afternoon. My wife, Colleen, at the time was in the bedroom, probably the master bedroom, I believe, if I remember right. And all of a sudden I hear, and I wasn't startled by it. I didn't say, "Who the hell was this?" I just simply had a conversation with her in my head, like it was normal. She said, "Eric, you need to come back up to the property. You need to be there before sundown. It's important." And I didn't say, "Who's this?" You know, it was a woman's voice. It sounded like she was 30 years old. Sounded like a dynamic female, you know, like a businesswoman's voice. And I said, "I can't go back up to the property. I just came back from there." And I said, "We're going out in the boat tomorrow, the pontoon boat with the kids." She said, "You need to go back up to the property. You need to be there before sundown. It is important that you be there." And I'm like, I said, "She's going to be upset with me if I tell her I'm going to go to the property." She goes, "Well, then you need to go start a fight with her. You need to," I said, "Well," then I said exactly this. I said, "Well, we never fight. She's not going to buy into that." I'm not exactly sure that was said. She goes, "Well, then you need to start a fight with her and call her there's a pause, about 2-second pause. It's like she's reading through like 12, cuss words, and it was like number 7 down. You need to call her a bitch." I was like, "Oh," I said, "I don't know about that." She goes, "Go ahead and do it." She goes, "You need to be there before sundown. It is important." And so I said, I walked over to the bedroom. I said, "Colleen, come here." I said, "I'm going to go up to the property." She goes, "What are you talking about? You're going up to the property?" I said, "Yeah, I'm going to go up to the property and spend the night." She goes, "I thought we were going on a boat tomorrow with the kids on a pontoon boat." I said, "You know, that's just like you. You're a bitch." I was thinking to myself, "Oh my God," I was saying it. And
well, does she believe you, or does she think you're like something's wrong?
Oh, she thought something was up. So at that point, she was getting kind of stressed out, I think. And so I just had a white T-shirt on, a pair of blue jeans, a pair of sneakers. Then I got what I call today. Back then I didn't recognize it, but I've had it many times. Right after a telepathic command, you get I call it like a push. It's like a data transfer, and I could even call it words, but now I can't really analyze it because I haven't had it happen in a while. But it'll be you need to drive there at 96 miles an hour to get there before sundown. And when I drove up the busy thoroughfare, which is called, people call it Useless 19. It's like an 8-lane highway going through many, many cities. And that's what everybody uses to get around. Very poorly laid out. It's always filled with traffic. On a Friday at 5:30 in the afternoon, you're bumper to bumper. It takes you an hour to go 20 miles. I hardly saw any traffic. That's why when I look back on it, absolutely, and especially what happened later here, when I got here, they have full control over reality. Some people find it hard to believe, but I drove US 19 those years, for many years, going up and down thousands of service calls every time of day, and I've never seen it like this. And it looked like there was like a blue hue outside, like a very light, like almost like a purplish blue hue. It was very slight. I mean, it was almost not even, I didn't even notice it until there's so almost no traffic. I probably passed like 5 cars going up there and kept my speed up. Wasn't worried about getting a ticket or actually getting arrested. And I used the center lane and straight up, went right through every single green light. Every light changed well in advance for me, stayed green for a long time, and there was no cars at the intersections. And what cars that I did see, I did take note, even at that point, that the cars were stopping three car lengths before the intersection. And that's at the point where I realized I'm looking out the side window, and the front and the side window going past it, and I thought, now there's something really strange going on here. Is this a holiday or something? It was like 8 a.m. on Christmas morning. In fact, it would be a lot busier than that, even on that road. I was like, something's really strange going on here. So I get to this land, this property, in record time. Like an hour and a half, hour and 20 minutes. It takes 4.5 hours. And that's when, that's what I call Alice in Wonderland when I got here. I mean, it was just, everything was really, some really crazy events happened. But I believe it was to keep me here while they were back at my house, probably going for my 2 sons, which today they've had several interactions with me present and actually without me. Rapid fire. Six-hour missing time from the deer stand. Found my brother over here. We raced home to get home for dinner. Got home at 9 o'clock. The very next night, we had the orange sphere in the front yard. And then that Friday of the same week, I had the telepathy contact where the female voice told me to come back up to the property. She's talking about this property. So we talked about that already. And then I came up here, driving up here, and I made it here before sunset, just like she instructed me to. It's not what I wanted to do, but I did what she told me to do. Why is a mystery. I walked up the pathway where I parked the truck. It's about 250, 300 yards to this cabin. I got up to here, to this point, where that tree is cut down, and over there is a automatic game feeder. At the time, it was not an automatic game feeder. It's just a 30-gallon garbage can with a pole sticking down, so when the hogs bump it, corn fall. So I could hear, at this point, halfway up the trail, I could hear the hogs under the feeder. They were screaming and fighting and carrying on. I definitely knew there was a pack of hogs there, so I figured, great. Go ahead and get myself a wild boar first 5 minutes while I'm here and relax the rest of the night, and for whatever reason I'm up here for. Took aim with my Mini 30, had a scope on it, dropped the biggest one. She was about 200 pounds, 250 pounds, a big boar, and a big sow. The rest of the hogs, there's probably about 20 pigs there that I could see that were in the open. They all scattered, went into the woods, of course, after he fired a gun. I went up there, and usually it takes a couple of people to drag a hog out of that size. Even with a sling, I reached down, just grabbed its back hooves and just dragged the hog backwards to the bottom of these stairs. And instead of taking it out of the cabin and cleaning it like we would normally do, I took the hog and dragged it up the stairs and put it on the corner of the porch. The next thing that happened is I heard the woods break right here. And a hog that I've not seen yet came out, and it was a big brown 150-pound hog. Had big, I don't know if the eyes matched the hair perfectly. Had big brown eyes. It stopped at the bottom of the stairs and it was looking up at me. And this is like 6 o'clock, 6:30. Still enough light out. I'm looking at the hog, and it's looking up at me, and it's actually blowing at me through its nose. I mean, it was like, it was warm out, and I could see, it was blowing so hard I could see steam or something coming out of its nose. I mean, it was like, it did that about, I don't know, a few times, and kept a few times over and over again. And I stood at the top there, and I was like, I wasn't going to shoot another hog, but I was like, go on, get. Talking to it to see if it would respond or something, know that I'm standing there and I'm a human. I don't know if it could actually see me or not, but it was looking right at me in my eyes. It wouldn't respond. It just stood there. I mean, it's very unusual behavior for a wild animal. And that went on for a while. And finally, it just walked off
same place it came into, out into the woods, real slowly back in there. I could hear it crunching through there. Then I looked down, and the hog that I had up there, I was standing in like 3 or 4 gallons of milk. I mean, it was just all over the porch. It was just leaking under my feet. It was like, that was pretty gross. I mean, I was like, it usually doesn't happen. You see a little bit sometimes if it's a sow, but I mean, it was actually coming over the edge of my sneakers, and I was stepping in it. I thought that was kind of unusual. So I proceeded to go ahead and just clean the hog out. Took my knife and butchered up a lot of it. Took the back straps out. Took some of the major parts off and turned around. I had a blue cooler with a white lid on it, filled with crushed ice. Nice wavy crushed ice. It looked like it was really fine, like snow cone ice. That's what it looked like to me. That's what I thought at the time too, but I never put 2 and 2 together because, I'm going to go ahead and fast forward years. I mean, it took years and years before I started talking to somebody about, the ET phenomenon, and he was asking me questions, looking over all my dialogue, and he's like, where did the cooler come from? You never said you took that from home. When you left with your white t-shirt on, your blue jeans, and your gun. I absolutely did not bring a cooler with me. I just walked out the door. No boots or sneakers on. The cooler was evidently provided for me. The ice was unmelted, so it was not left there by somebody. It was fresh, right out. It looked like right off of a snow cone machine. I don't know who makes ice like that. It was really fine. And there's also opaque, like plastic bags in there. They weren't see-through, but they're kind of like shaded, where you hold them up see-through and look like almost like cellophane, but except like clear, more clear. So I put my meat inside the bags, put it all nice and pushed it down in there and closed the lid. I took the hog. I didn't want to dress the hog out 100% because I was just, it just grossed me out with all the milk and everything. It just dropped the hog down, I pulled the hog down the stairs. The hog neatly went right down the stairs behind me. It didn't go faster than me. It didn't make me go faster. It was just kind of odd, I didn't think that was odd at the time. I was just doing it. And then I came down the trail, dragging the hog to behind you over here. I'm going to swing around and I'll show you how far away I brought it over. Here I'm pulling the hog over here. At this time, this is back in '94. This was all a lot thicker woods. Everything was a lot thicker on here, and this was more manicured. So I'm pulling the hog down over here, and I drag it over here, and I got probably to, I would say it was right in here. And I just dragged it off, put it right here. And you could not see the hog from those stairs. You can now, but from then you couldn't. So I just left it. We only come up here once every so often, so that's what you do with a carcass. Walked all the way back here. By the time I got to right here, I could hear some strange noises behind me. And when I got to the bottom of the stairs, I was definitely listening to what was unmistakably the bones, the big bones of that hog being smashed, crunched. What it sounded like under the jaws of a few big animals. I mean, there was like, you could hear the bones simultaneously just crunching. At that point, I thought, something's not right. All this adding up, and something's definitely not right here. And, just adding it all up, and it was, at the time, that's when I was really starting to think something is off. So, I definitely don't want to spend any more time on the forest floor, because I'm thinking maybe because I shot the hog and maybe there's some blood, maybe the wild animals are starving out here. If I fall down and break a leg by myself out here, hogs will devour you. They will. So that was crossing my mind. Hogs eating meat over there. I'm meat. They'll never find any trace of me. So I wanted to get back up the stairs. I get back up the stairs, and the next thing I know, I see all the hogs walk back out into the clearing again under the feeder over there. And I thought that was unusual, because when you fire your gun, you got at least a good couple hours before they come back, most of the time, and especially when it's daylight out. saw it was the same hogs. They all came in from about 3 different directions, fanned in, started eating again. And I think I might have yelled at that point. You know, I wasn't hunting at that point, so I was yelled out like, you know, a few words to see if I could, you know, just checking the reality here, see if they would walk away. They didn't even flinch. They just kept eating. And then all of a sudden, I started tasting this sweet taste in my mouth. It was a very sweet, like a very flowery taste, like a honey taste. And it was really thick in my mouth. And all of a sudden, this billowing smoke, like fog, just starts rolling in. It wasn't smoke, it was like a fog. And it totally engulfed that whole entire side of the forest. Rolled in, stopped where the hogs were, came around behind the hogs, filled up over here. I couldn't see anything. I couldn't even see the cabin behind me, 4 feet behind me. I couldn't see down the stairs. I couldn't see down here anymore. I could barely see my hand in front of my face unless I looked going down the road where the trail was to the hogs. And then all of a sudden, the hogs stopped eating all of a sudden. I did take a picture of it. I have a picture of this. I knew I took a picture of this with a little $6 throwaway camera that my brother left up here. I went in there and grabbed it and I took a picture of it. And I found that picture after like 20 years. And you look at it's pretty far in the distance, it's not a really focused picture, or it's, you know, it looks like on a computer, like 78 DPI if you were to print it. You could see that there's definitely some black animals, but they're not definitively hogs. I don't know if that means anything, or if it was a constructed reality, it wasn't showing up on a film, or it's just a cheap camera. I don't use those cameras. I didn't have a camera to bring anything with me, but I knew that camera was on the shelf. So I took a picture of it, so I have that. And you could see a bunch of hogs under the feeder. They all look exactly the same, too. Same color, same size. Next thing I know, the hogs start walking down the trail, all filing in behind each other, single file, walking down the trail one after another. By this time, the fog was all around me. I guess the sun had set, and it was dark. It was almost nearly dark. I ran in there and got a battery-operated Q-beam that I had in the cabin. I turned it on. I could shine it on the hogs. And even you turn a light on a wild hog, absolutely 100% of the time, they run away. There's no doubt about it. You turn a light on. If you're hog hunting at night, you got about 1 second, 2 seconds to make your shot. They run away. If you go past that time, you got hours, usually hours again before you hunt. They were unaffected by that. That was really, really starting to make me wonder at that point. And then I was even yelling out to the hogs. I was by myself, and I was like, "Hey, don't you see me up here?" None of them even flinched. It's like they couldn't hear me. They all filed in under the cabin. They're all gone from my sight. And then all of a sudden, this is like a glorified tree house up on foam poles. It doesn't really move. It'll move if big person walks and pulls it back and forth. You'll feel it move like a thousandth of an inch. All stilt construction does. But this cabin was moving back and forth about a quarter or half an inch, swaying, because the hogs evidently were rubbing themselves on the poles. That's not unusual. They will do that to get ticks off or whatever, scratch themselves. But every single one of them was doing it. I mean, when I left here the next day, there was paint and black missing off of one side of each pole. And that was there for 10 years until we put new paint on there. So there was evidence of that. So at that point, after the hog was being eaten over here by something, I don't know there's no bears around here. I've never seen a bear here in all the thousands of days I've been on in these swamps. Just not in this side of Florida. They're in the central Florida, some north, maybe a few south, but it's not on the nature's coast. It's just really rare to see them. Like once every 5 years, I'll hear somebody out here say they saw a bear. So I don't know what was eating that hog over there. And I didn't want to go look. Judging from the power of those jaws, I mean, it sounded like either It was a couple large panthers, which we do have out there, but they would have been standing there waiting for me to put the hog in that spot. It was just didn't make any sense. At this point, I had to spend a night here. I pulled the big barbecue in front of that staircase, tied it off. I just wanted that staircase barricaded. I had a bad feeling that, if it was something big, it would come up those stairs. And then the only thing that was stopping coming in is that door, and being by myself, it's a very uncomfortable feeling. I even put some tin cans in front of there too, some Coke or actually some Mountain Dew cans were in front of that barbecue. That was like an early warning. If it tipped over, I knew they were up there. I went in the cabin, closed the steel door, and at that time we just had like some bedding in the corner, no bunks. So I sat there with my Mini 30, my Ruger rifle, and the next thing that happened was I heard something step on the staircase. And at that time, that staircase was the duplicate of that, except it was made out of wood. And it began to start walking up the stairs. There's no mistake when somebody comes up those stairs. If a human walks up those stairs, you know somebody's here, which never happens. But if you're in a cabin and somebody's with you and they come up those stairs, you hear every step. This, whatever it was walking up the stairs. It would stop and then it would go down the stairs, up the stairs and down. That happened without stopping it was probably 6:30 at night until I finally passed out, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, probably about 5 hours later minimum. I remember that was my last thoughts I was thinking. It was constant up and down, up and down. Never stopped. I woke up in the morning with my gun in my lap, and it was about, I would say, I don't remember exactly what my watch, but I think it was like 8:30 in the morning or maybe 9 o'clock. Since I was up so late, it was late when I got up. I walked over, opened the front door, walked over to the staircase. The first thing I saw was every single stair looked like somebody had, it looked like it was just solid, it was black mud about that deep on each stair. And each stair, every single stair had mud on it that deep, and it was hundreds and hundreds of footprints. Being a hunter and spending all decades and decades in the woods, I know what all the footprints look like. I looked at the footprints, I didn't recognize what they were. To me, it looked like some kind of a hoof. A hoof, not like a deer or a hog, but it looked like a small horse footprint. Whatever it was, I didn't like the looks of it. And the first thing I did was move the barbecue, squish, squish, squish all the way down the mud, walked down the trail, got in my truck and left. I do not remember taking a cooler with me, which is kind of odd. And I don't even know how I would take a 36-quart cooler down those stairs. One person can't really do it, especially when it's filled to the top with ice. It's just too heavy. But I do remember going back, and we ended up having that hog for dinner like the next night or next night after that. So we had that. We had the pork for dinner. And I remember taking it out of the plastic, which is really odd. And I don't ever remember what happened to the cooler. It was almost like it was some kind of like a hypnotic suggestion, like accept the cooler and forget about it, or don't ask questions. Pretty much like the rest of the story. So my assessment on this was that orange sphere that was on my front yard, 140 miles from here the night before. I have a feeling that the only reason for sending it up here was to get me out of the house. Probably because I had 2 boys in the other bedroom. Maybe they came back for them or something. As the years go by, there's a lot more stories than what we tell here. Different things that have happened, and they've been involved, had their own experiences, had experiences with me. I guess some will talk about. I can't talk about all of them. It takes hours and hours. But basically, our whole family's involved. We've had probably 20 friends, my son's friends, my friends come up. We've always had experiences. Everybody's had experiences with this kind of stuff here. I don't want to bring anything demonic into any of this because I really don't believe it's demonic. And I've never had they've had plenty of chances. If they ever wanted to do something bad to any of us, they could have. But my son, what happened is he said, something about, it was like something on a demonic thing, like a ram or something, human ram or something. I personally believe that the black triangular craft, the extraterrestrial craft, and orange spheres are the same thing. I don't know if they're coming here from the future, or the sphere is some kind of a forward reconnaissance, object. Nobody really knows. A plasma ball. But the one I saw didn't look like no orb. Didn't look like any plasma ball. It looked like if you were to take the sunset and just move it right up into your front yard, it was orange sphere. It didn't light up anything. But here's an interesting thing, and this is probably going to blow a lot of people's minds. I really don't want to talk about this, but I think it's, I really don't want to leave out any of the pertinent details to it. And I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but I'm going to say that, I can say that somebody in Florida that is aware of this location, that has somebody that they know personally, is an F-16 pilot. And he is, before he was debriefed, which he's perfectly allowed to do, he is chasing orange spheres out of, I'm going to say, all around here. There's a name for this place, right? I don't want to tell anybody what the name is, because as many stories as I have for extraterrestrials here that I think are extraterrestrial contact, possibly, which is what we're talking about in this video, on James' videos, I have an equal amount of what we believe are Sasquatches here on the property. We have really some amazing spiritual contact stories with spirits. We're going to talk about, I will include in this video, about 7 entities that we came face-to-face out here, that Bonnie and I came face-to-face with, and probably about 5 of the witnesses out here have seen it, a little bit from a distance, but I was 5 feet from it.
Can you draw what that insect-like creature looked like? With the wings that flew right there?
Yeah, it was just, all I could tell was it was human shaped. It looked like it had some kind of wings on its back. It was not very defined at all. I feel like something's watching from over there. This is probably, I don't know if this is related to extraterrestrials or what these entities were. I'll let you, hopefully somebody else out there. I know one other person have seen these. What we saw was self-illuminated eyes that were red, definitely red, and it looked like the old LED like you see when it first came out. It looked like an electronic LED, like a sensor. That's what it reminded me of. It wasn't orange, it was absolute red. So the eyes weren't round, they looked like an X. That's what they looked like to me up close. Even maybe closer to an L sometimes. I don't know if it was fluctuating, but you look at it dead on, I saw red X's, and so did Bonnie. Now out of the 7 of them that I saw, a couple of them looked like an L, but I don't know if it was misshaped or turned to the side. And out of the 7, 2 of them only had one eye, but it was so dark it could have been behind a leaf or something. So, but here's what happened. This place has a security gate 2 miles away, and this is all private hunting property in here. It's owned by a lot of people, but nobody trespasses in here, and the locked gate is 2 miles away. So I unlocked the gate, came in here. If we leave around, by 7 p.m., by the time we get our, drinks and supplies and all that for the weekend, it's 2:30 by the time we get here from where we live. I unlocked the gate, and we started coming in here down this dirt road, which you're looking at down there, looks the same way that way. It's about 2 miles away through different turns and all that. You never see anybody on the way in or way out. We got here at 2:36 in the morning. I always look at my watch anytime something happens. My clock on my radio. I mean my clock on my phone now. And you know, like a lot of guys do, I got a V8 in my Dodge pickup truck, and it's kind of loud with the dual exhaust, and I was racing the engine up and down, kind of like going a little bit faster than I should on the dirt road. You know, getting my girlfriend's like, slow down, you're gonna hit a deer. You know, and she's screaming every few minutes, so kind of having some fun with her. Not thinking that something in a distance, this is what my assessment was, the reason why we were confronted. I think I really kind of like aggravated something that was here, because you could hear this from a distance, probably 2 miles away. You could hear my truck coming, you know, whom, 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 the engine racing up and down every, you know, few hundred yards, you know, on a straightaway. I was only doing 30 miles an hour, but it sounded intimidating with a dual exhaust. By the time I got here, I stopped here, parked. Bonnie, she's an American Indian. She's Chippewa, you know. You got to force her to take a flashlight. You know, she walks around in the dark. She got out of the truck. She didn't got no flashlight. She's just taking it in. It's pitch black out here. I got a golf cart in there that I use. I can't take the truck all the way back in there at that time because it wasn't cleared out good enough. So at that time, I parked the truck right here. So 300 yards away, I had a golf cart. I run and get the golf cart. What was kind of odd I noticed, I have an observation I made after doing all this research all these years, trying to figure out what all this means. Bonnie and I ended up becoming paranormal investigators, so she's got a pretty well-known establishment where people call us, and we go out. And I've been in the presence of a lot of spirits, a lot of different activity. Nothing much like what I'm talking about here, but I noticed that when you're in this, a lot of times if you're in the presence of positive energy, you get really like a good feeling, and you're not afraid. You could be out in the middle of this forest. We just have lots of spiritual contacts out in this forest, and you could be out there by yourself. You could walk off 300 yards away, and you don't feel intimidated. You don't feel like, you know, there's a panther going to jump on your back, or you're going to run into a bear. You're going to see something you don't want to see, and there's a lot, energy influences a lot of people. I don't know if people realize that or not. So that night, I walked back in those woods by myself. I would have taken even Bonnie with me to get that golf cart. But I just said, wait here, I'll go get the golf cart. Usually under any circumstances, even before what I saw that night, I wouldn't have walked back in there by myself. I just wouldn't have done it. I've had a lot of spiritual contact back in there with spirits, and just not good. But that night I did, and I was on my way back in there. I heard Bonnie scream my name. You know, you talk to Bonnie about it, she goes, I didn't scream. I said, well, she yelled my name pretty loud. When she yelled my name, she said, come over here, there's something looking at me with red eyes. So I ran back. I didn't get to the golf cart yet. I got about 40 yards, 50 yards back in there. So I come running back. She's standing right here in front of the pickup. I had to park the pickup truck in the dirt road right here. She says it was right there. She goes, it was like 8 feet from me, and it was eye level looking right at me. I'm like, well, you probably saw a deer or something. She says, it's not a deer. She goes, your deers don't have glowing eyes. I said, well, if you shine your light on them, their eyes are going to glow, you know. You're going to see green or red. You're going to see something. You probably saw an owl. She goes, I don't have a flashlight. She goes, they were glowing. They looked like sensors. There was something electronic with 2 eyes looking right at me, and I didn't like the feeling of it. I was like, oh, okay, well, I believe you. I didn't see it, but I believe you. I said, whatever, I'm going to go get the golf cart. Be safe. I don't know why I didn't take her with me. It was just puzzling me at the time. After this puzzles me. So I run to get the golf cart again. She yells my name again. Eric, come here. It's in the road now. I come running back. She says, it's right there. Now it's right there. About 40 yards away. She goes, it was standing directly in the middle of the road. And it was 2:30 in the morning, dark, 2:36. I said, okay, well, standing in the middle of the road. Well, it's probably not an owl. Maybe it's a deer. And at this point, I don't want to say the word Sasquatch, but now I'm thinking Sasquatch. You know, they got red eyes, white eyes, people say. Now I'm getting kind of nervous. And I know those exist, and I've had those experiences too. And we'll talk about those some other time. So now I take Bonnie with me to go get the golf cart. And now I got some apprehension about driving that golf cart and turning my back. So I gave her the cube beam, and I had her shine the light behind the golf cart while we're driving it. Because, my hair is standing on the back of my head just driving that golf cart with both of us on it. But she said, her account of what happened, she remembers everything, but she remembers it differently than how I remember it. And this is only about 30 months ago. And this is 2014. The crazy thing about it is, I would not have gone back in those woods, I think, if I would have saw this for myself with my own eyes that night. I think I would have left on that Friday night. She says, I saw him looking at me right there. She says, you saw him right there. I pointed him out to her, and a being was standing right over there looking at me. And we still went and got the golf cart. I don't remember it that way. I do not remember seeing these, I don't remember having a personal contact myself until we got to the cabin.
Can you show us where the bean was over here?
Yes, because I've had her draw a picture of it. And after we've come back after that, she showed me where it was. Right here.
Okay.
And the thing about it is, where we see these standing, even though it's a possibility this is like an etheric entity, and maybe it's not a physical creature, it won't stand in the middle of the palmettos. It'll always stand where a person could be standing. The way I remember it, we only made one trip with the golf cart. Bonnie, my girlfriend, she immediately goes in the cabin and plumps down on the bunk on the left. The way I remember it, she had her boots still on. I remember her feet were hanging off the bed because she had her boots on. And that was it. She just immediately laid down. So I figured she was just tired. She doesn't stay up that late usually. So I came out here, and it's kind of funny because whenever you have an interaction with these entities, they kind of like lure you into not having a flashlight with you or a handgun with you. You always like without anything. And it's very unusual for me to go anywhere in the dark out here without my flashlight, even on the front porch. This place here is very uncomfortable sometimes to even be out here by yourself without a flashlight, even on this front porch over here. It sounds crazy. A lot of people would probably laugh at that, but I would have laughed at it too back when I was 25 years old. But there's the things that I've encountered out in the Florida swamps, and a lot of the stories I've heard from, hunters that are my age, once you start getting these people to talk, there's a lot of stories out there from credible people. But what happened now was she's laying in the bunk in there, and I'm standing out here in the pitch blackness. This is a no moon night. If it's not a no moon night, it's you got about 1% of light. You could probably make out the ground, and that's it. But there's maybe starlight under it. It's a very dark night, and it gets that way up here. So I'm standing right here exactly, and I'm just taking it in. I'm listening, try to listen to the sounds, and I don't hear any sounds. I don't hear any crickets. I don't hear any wind. I don't hear anything, and it's black. And it's just so quiet I can just listen forever out here. It's just nothing going on. And it's pretty unusual out in the swamp. And all of a sudden the hair on the back of my neck just stands up while I'm looking forward. Just the most, I've gone to a lot of people's homes, a lot of people's haunted houses, which I can tell you that you go to somebody's house that's haunted, you can have some experiences after you've been to, countless of those houses and businesses and that feeling. Well, I've never had this feeling before. I've never had the hair. I thought I've had the hair stand on the back of my neck. A lot of things situations I've been in, but now I know exactly what somebody's talking about when this happens, because when it stood up in the back of my neck, I felt it. It's a sensation that runs along your spine for no reason. You can feel it in your nervous system, and you know something is absolutely wrong. And I knew something was staring at me, and it was actually It actually had some kind of a power over my mind. Absolutely, 100%. If there's anything I'm ever sure of, that is what I'm sure of. And I actually, you can tell the direction where this being is looking at you when they do. And I knew it was looking right here at me. This being is 8 feet tall. This deck is 10 feet off the ground. And it was standing right there. And it was looking up at me. And its eyes looked like little red crosses. They were about, I would say they're about that far apart. They're farther apart than a human's eyes. Any human's eyes. The face was cocked, like he was glaring at me, like, you know, with its head cocked, like trying to have an attitude with me. And I couldn't see its body, but I could see the face. I could see a little bit of the face, and the face looked like it was not, your beige skin, all that. It was not a human face. I don't know if it had hair on it, or the skin was, augmented, or it was, there's some kind of skin condition. I don't know what it was, but it was just frightening.
Were you able to tell if it had scales or like human skin?
I can't tell you what it was. All I know is not. It wasn't going to be in any magazine for any makeup commercial. I can tell you that.
Could you tell what color the skin might have
Nope.
looked?
All I know it was it had features, lots of features.
Is that because it was so dark out?
It was. I know it was a big round head, and it was cocked. And when you make eye contact with that, you really can't. Your eyes don't travel very much on that face. I mean, or anywhere in that body. It was staring at me, and the first thing I said when I saw it, and I looked at it, and feeling like I've never had in my life, I said, "Bonnie," I said, "get out here. He's standing right here in front of me." And when I was looking at her like that, I wasn't taking my eyes off of this thing all the way. I was like looking both ways. Her words to me, the way I remembered exactly was, "I don't want to come out there and look at it. I've already seen what it looks like." And I thought that was really unusual for Bonnie to say that, because we're always trying to get homes to go investigations on. We're always trying to get answers with this stuff. We go looking for these things. We spend money to go look for these things. We spend a lot of time and effort. And this is a big thing. I mean, this is something you don't see every day. No, I guess she was tired of looking at it from out by the road, and guess she didn't want to see it. So I look back at it. When I go to turn my head, there's another one standing next to it. He was standing right there.
And how tall were these beams?
They're all exactly 8 feet tall. I mean, you could have put a tape on them. You could have drew a chalk line, snapped the chalk line right across their heads. He was there. The other one was there. The other one was there. The other one was on the edge of the trail, almost lined up exactly, not quite. This one was moved back a little bit. The two in the middle right there only had one eyeball. One cross around here, but at the time this was grown up more. During the middle of the summer, and there's a lot more vegetation. And I can't tell you, but maybe it only had one eye, but maybe it had more like it had a leaf in front of the eye. All those beings, they appeared to be looking forward, I guess, or kind of this way. I could see both their eyes. Oh, maybe the two there were looking this way. Maybe that's why I only saw. I never thought about that. But the rest of them, I was counting eyeballs, and there were 7 entities standing in a row, just like soldiers in front of this place.
Were you scared?
I don't know what I was thinking at that point. I didn't like it, I'll tell you that. That just blew. I can handle spirits, I can handle Sasquatches, I can handle UFOs. I'm still here with all this. Nothing made me feel like this made me feel.
Did they tell you a message at all? Telepathically?
I don't remember anything after this point. I don't ever remember Bonnie coming out on this porch ever after she went in there. She walked up the stairs with her bags, went in there and laid down. My next memory was this. You want to back up and I'll show you? This is what happened. And I don't know if this is because the reality is different what she remembers. Bonnie remembers coming out on the porch here with me. She remembers seeing all these. She remembers staying next to me. She remembers, I even said, "Bonnie, there's no possible way you're staying next to me. You refused to come out."
I said, you know what, if you think that's true, draw it on a piece of paper where you saw the entity standing, and we'll see if you remember it. She drew exactly where they were. So my memory of what happened is completely different than hers. That's why I do not think these are Indian spirits. I don't think these are, the spirits, I don't know, spirits of Sasquatch. I don't know what these entities were. But all I know is they have control over reality as well as what a lot of the extraterrestrials are believed. I don't know if they're extraterrestrials. I don't know what they were. So she wouldn't come out. So I saw all them standing there, and my next recollection was complete anger. I was furious. And I remember walking from here to here, and I got inside the cabin, and I said the words, "Fuck you," and I hit with the back of my back of my heel, and I slammed the door shut. Bam. And that was it. And when that door slammed shut, I don't even remember locking the door, which is really weird. I might have. I can't say for sure. My next memory was going over to on that side of the cabin where the bunk is, and I did like she did. I plopped down, didn't even take my boots off, and I went to sleep. Didn't prep for bed, didn't use the restroom, didn't brush your teeth, didn't put my luggage away, didn't come out here and take in some more sights. I mean, it was, I never go to bed at 2:30. I stay up for a few more hours for that. I'm a night person, and I was not tired. So I don't know what happened that night. I don't know if more something that they had some kind of interaction with us, and we were both placed in our beds, and that's a screen memory. I don't know. So I have no clue what happened. All I know is very strange behavior I had, and I would never kick this door as hard as I did. There's always enough to do working in the working with buildings and stuff, and I need to break my stuff. And I don't ever get that mad. And I remember distinctly using the back of my boot and slamming that door shut on their faces, and just it doesn't make any sense. As a researcher, it doesn't make sense. I would have got my high definition video camera. That it's a professional grade video camera like the one you use, the same model you got. I bought it specifically for documenting these events that we are all encountering. And I would have went in there, got my video camera, and got this on tape because I know that nobody's going to believe this. And I didn't do that. I didn't even do it. I just went to bed. So now I'm going to tell you what happened next. I was pretty much after I got home. Now Bonnie, here's the thing. Here we come up again with the phenomenon where where couples are engaged in anything that has to do with extraterrestrials or visitations. One of them, a lot of times, if it's two people, won't talk about it. It's like a hypnotic suggestion. Act angry and aggressive and tell them you don't want to talk about it. Get mad. Well, that's what she does. Every time I bring it up, it's a fact. She does not want to discuss it. I mean, if I got to, I gotta make her talk about it, and then we talk about it for about 20 seconds, and then the conversation's ended by her. And I asked her, I said, if you were on the front porch, which I do believe you were after you drew that, I'm not saying that's not the way you remember it. I'm just saying that there's two different screen memories that were put in there. I said, well, what do you remember happened? Do you remember me kicking the door shut? Do you remember the beings come up on the porch? What is your next memory, your next conscious memory of what happened that night? And that's when it gets really tense, and she breaks the conversation off. She gets mad, and it's end of conversation at that point. I got a friend who's a military policeman. He's a retired military policeman, teaches ROTC, I believe that's what it is. So he's in education now. He teaches the same thing, but he's still doing the same thing. So him and I came up here. I told him about what happened, and he wanted to come up here and see it for himself. And I for some reason, I believe that they would still be here. I don't know what made me think that. And usually when it's something paranormal or supernatural,
you ain't never going to duplicate the same experience. That's why science doesn't believe any of this stuff, because none of it's you can't duplicate anything. It's not replicable. So here's what happened. We timed it. We left the house. It's 140 miles from here. Drove up here, and I timed it exactly so we'd get here at 2:36. Drove down every single turn just as fast as I did. Made it sound intimidating, and I ended up parking there with kind of a bad feeling. Now I'm starting to think, you know what? Now I'm trying to make something angry here that I shouldn't be fooling around with. They made a grand gesture by showing themselves, and it's not probably a wise thing to do, but it was done. I had all my cameras ready. He had his ready. We were going to document this. We stopped, same spot exactly. We spent like 15, 20 minutes outside the truck. Not one of them would show themselves. So I'm like, well, that's typical. You know, Rob, it's not going to happen. It's the way paranormal stuff is, or whatever, supernatural. You know, it never happens twice the same way. So he goes, well, hell with it. I guess I'm going to I'll put my snake boots on. And he's in the back of the truck. I'm out in the front of the truck on the road, on the dirt road out there where Bonnie and I were first had a contact. And I have a new different type of camera I got. It's like a night vision camera. Doesn't make videotape or anything. So I'm just looking down the road, looking at, checking it out, seeing how it is. And next thing I know, Rob is out of sight behind the truck, sitting on the tailgate. I'm way in front of the truck, and I'm facing this way down that road, facing east. And the next thing I know, I get that feeling again. My hair standing on the back of my neck. You know, my nervous system is like electrically charged right down my backbone, my neck. I could feel the direction that this being was staring at me in, and it was staring at me with aggression. That's the feeling I got. I turned to my left, and out by the dirt road over there, he was standing right where a person could be standing. The only clear spot right there, into the swamp a little bit, where there's some dry land there. Probably standing kind of like where if Rob looked over, we wouldn't be able to see him, but I could see him. And he was leering at me. And I turned over, I was like, first thing I said was, Rob, there he is. They're back. And without Rob, chased this being into the swamp, into the thick woods. You can see these woods are so thick you can't see 10 feet into them. I chased this thing 40 yards back in there at 2:30 in the morning by myself. I don't know what possessed me to do that, but I know I wasn't trying to hurt or anything. I just wanted to get on video. I could not hear that thing running in front of me. I could not hear anything except for myself running in there. So the next thing I hear is Rob yelling for me. He said something like, Eric, where are you going? Come on back. What are you doing? So I stopped. I'm looking at my viewfinder. I didn't see anything. There was nothing there. So I turned around and made my way back out. And that was it. That was the last time that I've seen him. And I haven't been up here in 2 years after that. I had no interest in coming. The whole thing is like a big box of monsters now. So my son, he's not intimidated. He hasn't really come face to face with it, but my son has seen it in the distance. He hasn't seen the little red crosses up front like I did up close and personal, but he's had about probably 5 or 6 friends that he's taken up here over the past couple of years, and they have seen it. As soon as the sun goes down, as soon as it starts getting dark, if they're sitting in a deer stand, one of the beings will show themselves to them. As soon as it gets dark, they'll see the eyes looking at them. And, these guys are in the military, they're experienced, and their friends are, they're experienced in the woods, and they know they're not using a flashlight, they're seeing self-illuminated eyes. I started coming back up here again about 6 months ago. After staying away for 2 years, after I had the encounter with the red glowing eye entities. So it's hunting season. My buddy Angelo, he's a hunter. He talked me into going back up hunting, getting back into it again. I was ready for it again. So we go up here with his two, I think both of them are his brothers. Sammy, he's like 36.
Eric, I think that's the way you pronounce his name. They're from Jordan, so they wanted to go to bed early, like at around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. So I was up reading my book in bed. And because when you go hunting, I get up around 5 in the morning before the sun comes up. There's a phenomenon out there that you might want to take a look at, the listeners of this. Some people might be aware of it. And I think this is all connected to it because I've had several encounters up here. And I'm going to group the thing with the red eyes into it. But I had an entity I ran into down there that was trying to lead me away from the cabin, again without a flashlight, again without a handgun, total...
Was that the pink-eyed entity?
Yes. And I think that I'm going to group these three stories into this because there's something that's going on. It's happening all over the world. Just go look at there's a retired, I believe he's a gold badge detective, that is investigating missing people that are taken from national forests and parks under mysterious circumstances. Big time hunters that go hunting with bow and arrows for Kodiak bears by themselves. These guys have GPSs. They're experienced with trail marking and finding their way back. Never to be seen again. Kids where the parents take them out and the kids walk 30 feet away. They're missing. And they even bring the Green Berets in with big bloodhounds, and they look for them for weeks and weeks, following the trail, and the kids just walking faster than they can chase them. It's just really crazy. And anybody who goes camping and they have kids, or anybody who's camping out in the woods at all, should go take a look at it. He's written 2 books about it called Missing 411. So we are in the cabin, and it's 11 o'clock at night. Now it's about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm still wide awake reading my book, and all of a sudden I feel some kind of like an energy come into the cabin, where it felt like my whole face filled like somebody was putting putty in my face and inside my face, and it was like I know what it feels like when you're tired and you're going to sleep. This was like just knocking me out. My book fell against my chest. The next thing, 2 seconds later, what woke me up was Sammy was sleeping in the middle of the cabin on a cot, because we're out of bunks for everybody. So Sammy immediately sits up in his cot and and the cot squeaks of metal against metal. It's aluminum. And I immediately woke back up again. I picked my book up and started reading again, right where I left off. I was only asleep for 1-2 seconds. His back is arched, perfectly arched, and he's just sitting there. And this is like 5 minutes he's sitting there without moving. And I'm like, maybe he's got a bad back, so maybe he's trying to, stretch or whatever. Then he rubs his face really hard, like 3 times, and then he grabs his boots, which, he was having trouble putting his boots on, brand new boots, and I watch him put his boots on. He fusses with it for a while. He put the boots on with like military precision, just bam, bam, put both boots on without even looking. He's still looking straight ahead. He reached down and grabbed the boots without looking at him. I was like, what the heck is he doing? I guess he's got to go to the bathroom. So he comes up to the door. This screen door was tied shut with a rope. This one was open. And he walks up the screen door and he can't open it. And he's like pushing on it. I'm thinking, well, he's going to find a rope any second. So he keeps pushing on it. And I'm watching him do this for a few minutes. And I'm like, well, I guess, I said, Sammy, where are you going? I said, are you going outside to use the restroom? I said, you want me to go with you? And nobody wants to go out here by themselves, including those 2 guys. They even made that clear that they don't like this place when they got here. He wouldn't answer me. So this time Angelo's awake, and he's looking at him. And he's like, Sammy, wake up. They speak with a Middle Eastern accent. And I'm like, Sammy. I said, what's up, buddy? You sleepwalking or something? And I walk up to him, and I grabbed him by his shoulder, and he turns around, and he's like, oh. And he tries to cold cock me. And I'm like, whoa. I said, what's the matter? He's like, they're calling me. Sammy, come here. He goes, it's Eric, or whatever his name was. I think it's Arike or something. It's a strange spelling. I couldn't pronounce it. I'm like, no, he's in his bunk. He's sleeping. Well, he was sleeping. He goes, well, there it is again. Sammy, come here. I said, who's calling you? I said, nobody's calling you. I said, I've been awake all night. He goes, there it goes again. I have to go. So at this point, he's looking through the screen door. I haven't got the screen door open yet. It still has the rope on it. Still roped shut. And I'm like, Sammy, there's nobody calling you, buddy. Nobody's calling you from those woods. I'm like, if you don't got to go to the bathroom. I said, just go lay back down again. I said, what are you doing, sleepwalking? No. He goes, for 10 minutes after that, he sat down in that bunk, and he still wanted to keep getting up because somebody was calling his name out in the woods. And knew when nobody's calling his name. None of us heard it called. There's nobody out there to call anybody's name. So the next morning at breakfast, I finally went to bed. I went to bed at like 4:30. It was 4:35. I finally put my book down and went to sleep. At exactly 5 in the morning, Angelo caught him trying to go back out again, trying to get through the door. This time we had the door barricaded with all the luggage piled in front of the door, with the steel door shut. Just because, Angelo and I were kind of worried that, Angelo knows what's going on out here. So I was thinking, you know what? I told Angelo, I said, that's, something's not right. What's going on with this? And I don't want anybody to walk out this door under some trance and then fall off the deck or down those stairs. So we barricaded the door. We finally put Sammy, he's a grown man, back to bed. And then 5 or 5:20 in the morning, I think Angelo told me, he was, right after I went to bed, I didn't get up. I never remember hearing it. And he did the same thing over again. Sammy, come here. They're calling me. So Angelo said he struggled with them even longer than we did the first time. We go to breakfast the next day after we get done with our hunting at about noon. We all met here back when we go to breakfast, and Sammy had no recollection at all of anything that happened that last night. So now we got another story that's very similar to that. Now this happened a few months ago. What I'm going to talk about now is what happened years ago. This was about probably in 2007. My girlfriend Bonnie was standing right here. I had evidently left my handgun in the cabin and a flashlight, and it was getting dark. It was almost so dark you couldn't make out. It was almost the moonlight, just enough where I could see the cabin porch from down there, but it was so dark. I mean, it was like you wouldn't walk out in the woods without a flashlight. Here I am walking down that trail into the swamp, and she's standing here and she's yelling at me. And I could hear her yelling my name, but I wasn't turning around. It was like somebody yelling at you, calling your name while you're in a deep sleep. And I could count how many times she was calling my name while I was walking that way. Finally, on the fifth one, she really screamed my name. And I snapped out of it.
Yeah.
Palm tree, there's the feeder. To the right, there's a big trail right there. It looked just like that in 2007. I was halfway down that trail, about 40 yards out, and I turn around. I see Bonnie here, and I turn around at the end of the trail because I felt something was communicating with me. I didn't feel what I felt with those other, the red glowing eyes, but I definitely felt like something was, something was looking at me over there. I turn around, and I see these, they look like teardrop eyes. Big, if you look like those alien grays like you always see, the folklore gray with the big black eyes, this looked just like that, except the eyes were pink. They were glowing pink. And it looked like it was a real dull pink, but they're definitely illuminated from the inside out. And they were looking at me, and the figure was I estimate about 5 feet tall, maybe 5.5, about this tall. And she was looking right at me. And then the trail turns to the left down there. And you can't see it. When it turns to the left, if you walk that way, person disappears. She was standing there looking at me. And I looked at her and I was like, what in the hell am I looking at? And it was too dark to see the body, but it was light enough to see the eyes, and I could see the shape of the head and the body. And it looked like she was wearing probably some kind of a skin-tight suit. I didn't see any clothing hanging off. I just saw limbs and arms. and the head looked like it was, I would say like a pale skin color, looking back on it. But I was really focused. When you see eyes glow like that, you're stuck on the eyes. And I only got to see it for 1,000, 2,000. That was it. And she goes, turns to the side, moves into the woods, walks into the woods. Just mythologically turns to the side and walks like that. Just like it was a military maneuver. I'll tell you what, when I got that, I got the heebie-jeebies of seeing that, because that was freaking me out. I was like, what am I doing walking down this trail? And I'll tell you, I ran back because I thought, I didn't know what else was down there. And I ran back and came up those stairs.
Yeah, recently, lately I've been bringing friends up there, and it seems that every time I bring someone new up there, some kind of weird event happens. So, about in January, about this time, which is the 14th of 2014, I brought friends up there, which are very skeptical people. My friend Jason and my girlfriend, they're pretty used to me already, so they're used to this kind of environment and strange things happening, I guess. Friend John is too. He's pretty skeptical, but he's seen a lot of things up there with me. He's been every single time so far. Recently we went up there in January, the second week of January. We went up there just for hunting, and my friend Jason and my girlfriend don't hunt, so they came up there to come camping with us. And first night, pretty usual. It was a cold night. Never, not really much happens on the first night. But as the weekend progressed, as the second day rolled around, Saturday night, we decided to do a night hunt. So on the other side of our private property, we have a tree stand that we can hunt from. So Corey and John left. I took them to the other side of the property, and they stayed there, while Jason and my girlfriend and myself stayed at the cabin. It's kind of like a kid's tree house that we built out there, and it's all screened in so you can hunt from it. And I've had experiences happen on that side of the property. Pretty much every square inch of that place, something weird happened. But that specific weekend, after they left, we came back, and of course Jason and my girlfriend don't hunt, so they're just doing something on the cabin porch. And I was on the right side of the cabin that overlooks a trail that you can just see a long distance down this trail into this big open wooded field where there's not much brush. So night rolls around, and I just got a poach. I'm sitting there in the chair with my 270 rifle. It's got a high-powered scope on it, and I got it benched on a railing looking straight down this trail into the wooded area, because I've seen things out there before. We while they're on the other side of the cabin just talking, and night rolls around. When it's night out there, it gets pitch black. You can't see anything. You got to have a headlight on you at all times. So it gets around 10 or 11 at nighttime, and I'm just looking through my rifle scope down this wooded trail. Can't see anything, but I got a green laser designator that I can immediately flip on that syncs up with my scope. So it illuminates everything down there. So it's kind of like I have night vision on the scope. And I was flicking it on inadvertently, looking down the trail, seeing if anything is down there. And after 10 or 11 rolls around, this light appears down there, about 150 yards out. This light, yellow in color, it was kind of like an orb, but more oblongish. But it probably could have been the size of like a lantern, a small lantern, but bright yellow, like mild yellow in color. And I'm staring at this thing. I'm looking at it through my rifle scope for 10 minutes. And it's powerful. I can zoom in all the way in it. I could fill up the entire rectangle with this thing, trying to figure out what it is. It wasn't illuminating anything. There wasn't anything carrying it. It didn't look like, so it couldn't have been like a lantern or anything like that. But it did have almost like a shaded grid light pattern on it. After staring at this thing for a long time, 10 minutes or so, I call Jason and my girlfriend over to come take a look at this thing. We're taking turns looking through the rifle scope. None of us can figure out what it is. Jason, he's 45, so he's been around the block. He can't figure out what it is. So after time rolls by, 15 minutes, this thing being on, it just flicks off, gone. Back to being pitch black out there. And we're kerflunked. We can't figure out what the heck this thing was. So I'm still looking down there. Maybe a few minutes later, there's a white light turns on about another 50 yards back. And there's a road back there that it's private, and no one ever goes down, ever. It's dirt, so you'd be able to tell because there'd be tire tracks in that road if anybody's down there. And we checked when we got there, nothing. So this white light turns on, and our immediate, we thought it was a vehicle out there because it's a road. So we're like, oh, some car must have went by. Even the white light could have been some guy out there, but wait another few minutes, then another light turned on. It was red this time. So there's a white and a red light right next to each other. So added more evidence that it could have been a vehicle at first. And same amount of time, a red light turns on next to it to the right, and then another white light turns on. So it kind of simulates like the back of a vehicle. It was like a white, red, red, white. So of course you're gonna think back of a car with reverse lights or something like that on, but they're completely flat, like a cigar shape. So after a while, we're still looking at this thing. It's sitting there 200 yards out through this rifle scope. We're flicking the laser on at it, trying to figure out what it is, scare somebody if there's anybody there, because it's private land. No one's supposed to be over there. So eventually, the road as it goes parallel to our property, the way these lights would be set up, it would be sideways on the road if it was a vehicle. So we thought it was just a guy parked out there, but then it starts moving. And technically, if it was a vehicle, it would have to turn around. We'd see headlights perfectly down this trail. We've seen headlights go down this road before. No headlights, just straight bar of lights back there. It starts moving sideways down this road, as if it was a car just going sideways, but it was just a bar of lights, extremely bright at this point. And it gets to a point where the bushes become so thick that you can't see lights at all. And I've seen cars go down there before. No, you can't see headlights when it gets to this certain point. This bar of lights keeps moving through the woods. As it approaches like this barrier of trees that you can't ever see anything through, it starts rising. And we're on the cabin, which is on stilts, 15 feet in the air at the most. So by the time it starts rising, it's almost eye level with us. So no longer it's on the road. Also, it seems like it's getting closer, like 15 feet in the air and closing in a little bit. So it's got to be inside the woods. Still moving sideways, bar of lights. At this point, as it's moving, it's getting brighter and brighter. And like I said, you can't see any headlights through these trees or anything. Still, same 4 lights, getting brighter through these brushes of trees. We watch it go completely to the other side of the property, through all these trees, getting closer. It gets to the point where down this trail, my truck is parked. it gets over there where it seems like it'd be over the top of my truck. So we're completely confused right now. We couldn't figure out what this is. No way it could be a vehicle at all. All three of us get the idea, grab the guns, grab headlights, run down the trail, see if we can't catch this thing. So we all do that, throw on our boots, go down the trail. By this point it vanished, can't see anything through the trees anymore. We run down to my truck, which is parked on the road down there. We can't see it. I got my rifle, I'm looking back and forth. We got headlights and everything, can't see anything. Didn't see a car, didn't see nothing. So we checked the road thinking this has to be a car or something, but we've never seen anything like this before. Fly through the woods at that bright lights and all that. It's crazy. So we checked the road. It had just rained like Thursday. So everything is still damp. You can see the tire tracks coming in from my truck, pulling in. And then continuously down the road, you would see a car, like car tracks or truck or anything, completely flat dirt, nothing. No car went by whatsoever. There wasn't a truck or anything. You can see a depression in the road. So that just built on to this weird inclining feeling that it was something else. It had to be, especially because it started raising up and then disappeared into the woods. We never seen lights that bright go through trees like that. But and that was the end of it. Probably I can't remember anything after that weekend.
What color were the lights again on it?
It was a bar of lights, kind of like a line, a cigar shape. But I didn't see any shape, just lights. It was white, red, red, white. We seen lots of crazy stuff out there, lots of different occasions. We've seen different types of entities, I guess. Adding on to that story, we had went up there just a few weekends ago. That would be February 1st, or the weekend around that one. We went up there, some different people we brought. My friend Corey, the one that went last time, he didn't see anything because they're on the other side of the cabin. But immediately when we got there, we pulled up to the trail to go up to the cabin. We got the guns out. He's got a shotgun with a laser light combo on it. And I'm getting my rifle out. And I can't get my laser designator to work, the laser flashlight. And I can't find my headlight, so I'm trying to scurry to get everything ready. He's done. He's over there by the back side of the truck. He's looking each way down the trail. Still nighttime, pitch black. You can't see anything out there. To the right of the trail, where we had seen previously, where we thought those lights came from, down the road, private land, no one ever goes. We didn't see any tire tracks that weekend either. It's very rare for people to go up there. But immediately when we got there, pulled up and loaded everything, he grabbed his shotgun, turns the flashlight on. He's got no scope on his shotgun, of course. He looks down the road down to where the lights were. It's about 75 yards before it makes a turn, and it had just rained, so everything is flooded. The only place that's not flooded is the road, pretty much. So as he's looking down there, he sees something white, a white blob moving, and extremely two bright looking eyes. You can see their eyes because they're reflective and they're moving. But he yells to me, he's like, "Jeff, there's something down there. There's something at the end of the road." It's watching us. It's staring straight down the road at us, not moving. He's flashing the laser and light at him, not doing anything. So as I'm getting my laser out and my flashlight, I'm trying to change the batteries and everything, trying to catch this thing. So I finally do that. I finally found a battery that was charged. I shine it down there through my scoped rifle that I had previously in that weekend. Shine it down the road at it, and I get a perfect image of this thing. It was probably 2.5 feet tall. Just shapeless. It was completely shapeless. It had bright white eyes, like diamonds reflecting in the light at nighttime, and it had almost like a blob look. That's the only way I can explain it. It was shapeless and a blob look. And it 2.5 feet tall at the most. I can't really call it an animal because I've been in the woods my whole life. I have never seen something of this shape, I guess you can call it. And usually animals out in the woods have like predatory eyes, either like yellow, red, yellow. Had none of the sort. It was just when the light hit it, it was just reflective, like beady diamond looking eyes. It was extremely bright, precise, and the shape of this thing that it was attached to, it was almost like a blob. That's the only way I can explain it. It was like just a blob with eyes down the road, and I zoomed in on it with the scope, and it was staring at us, just precise. My friend Corey, he's just extremely into that stuff, and he noticed it up front, and he's never had any experiences up there. He's always doing something else, like hunting on the other side of the property, of course, when something happens. So he was pretty excited that he's seen something like that. But as for staring at it, he's got the light on it with his shotgun, and I got the scope with my laser shining at it to illuminate it. And he can see it. You can pretty much see it with your eyes at this point, but I'm still looking at it through my scope. And as soon as it's about to leave, it starts almost thrashing, like just wobbling back and forth, and you can see its eyes glimmering, like almost like a line at this point, because it's moving so fast, like thrashing at us. Like after it stopped that, it kind of just got up. I don't know how to explain how it got up because I couldn't really see the outline of like legs or anything, but it kind of just scrunched up a little bit and then just turned to the side, which was even bigger looking blob, and then just disappeared behind the road because it was at the very corner of that curve. So me and Corey, of course, our first reaction is to let's go chase this thing. So everyone is still unpacking. We just started bolting down the road after it. And remember, all of it is flooded, everything. So if this thing was to disappear, it was either going to swim into the abyss because it's flooded the whole property, or continue down this curve. After the curve, it goes another 200 yards down the road. So we'd be able to see it again, right? Turn the corner, gone. Never seen it again. We walked down there even farther. We even found the tree because it was standing in front of a tree that was really obscure so you can recognize it. So we looked all in the water, like we were shining our lights in the water. Didn't see any ripples, nothing. We ran after it. There'd still be ripples. Looked down the road, nothing. It just vanished. And that was pretty much it after that. We never saw anything like it again. I drew this right afterwards, so it was like February 2008. This was a depiction of what I saw out there in the woods. It's not a very good picture. He's got the whole thing over there. I'll tell you the story of what actually happened after I drew that. Well, after he dropped us off, we wanted to go hunting at at this four-poster stand that everyone was at while we had this experience a few weekends ago. So it's just me and my friend Nick. It was 2008. He dropped us off early. It was like 4 p.m. or something when he dropped us off. And we stayed there for another 5 hours because you always got to wait for like the twilight hour, that, midst between light and dark before you can not see anything anymore. So it gets about 8:39 and it's pretty dark by then. It's pitch black out there. So, and we're bow hunting. We got a bow, and I got bad eyes already. So I was like, all right, let's radio my dad and come pick us up because we're pretty useless out here and defenseless and don't have a gun or nothing. We're in this deer stand, which is kind of like a tree house with me and my friend Nick. We got bows, we're hunting, and it just came around twilight. And I radio my dad to come pick us up because we can't see anything anymore. We're defenseless out there. We got bows at nighttime. It doesn't make a good, good mix and match. We barely have any good lights. So radio him to come pick us up. So I start picking up the area. I grab my bow, which is in front of me. The way the stand is set up, it's kind of like a box, like 6x6, up in a tree. And there's completely trees surrounding us, and we're overlooking a feeder. Well, I'm sitting next to the window, and my friend Nick is sitting in the chair behind me, and the whole thing is screened in. So my bow is on a hook on the railing. So I grab it, and in the same motion I grabbed it, flicked on my headlight, and then I turn around to say something to Nick, which doesn't have his stuff up yet or headlight on. So I turn around to say something to him, like, let's go, whatever. I turn around completely 180 to look at him. Behind him is a screen wall. There's not even wood or anything on it. It's just all screen. So I have my headlight facing that direction. And as I go to say something to him, my headlight catches a glimpse of something on the tree behind him. There's trees surrounding, so the nearest tree is probably about 5 feet behind the stand. It was some type of being, jet black. The first thing that I saw was its eyes. It had huge, it was either big almond eyes that were glistening, but it was almost like it was sunken in. But that's what my light caught at first, was these huge eyes. And it was humanoid. 100% it was humanoid. If it was a stand up straight, I would guesstimate it'd probably be between 3 and 4 feet tall. But it was hunched over on this tree. All of its limbs were just grabbing onto this thing. It's like a koala or something, like a koala stance. But its huge eyes and head were just humanoid, and it didn't ring a bell to any animal out there. Side note, we're hunting, so we didn't move. We're looking straight, didn't move for like 6 hours. So this thing was sitting on this tree, probably around nighttime came around. It got on there motionless. It wasn't there when we got on there. We'd be able to see it during the daytime, so it somehow crept up, got on this tree, and was just almost predatorily stalking us from behind. That was the inclination I got. When I saw this thing, I don't think I've ever screamed like a girl before, but it was close. My friend Nick, which was behind me, noticed that I saw something, and he jerked around, flipped his headlight on as fast as he could. He saw it for about a few seconds, and then it jumped straight up, like it had the muscles of, a jaguar. It just jumped straight up into the canopy. Didn't make a sound besides the jump off the tree. Jumped straight up, didn't hear it. Didn't hit the canopy, didn't hear it hit the ground, didn't hear wings or anything. I didn't see wings, but it was gone. Me and him looked at each other like, we need to get the hell out of here. I radioed my dad, and that's when I radioed him, and I was almost like choked up. I was like, you need to get the hell here. I mean, there's something out here stalking us. I mean, we just saw this. It was even better because my friend Nick saw it. Luckily, he turned around and saw this thing for a few seconds. I saw it for about 6 seconds before he did. So by the time he came and got us, we're freaked out. We beat it back to the cabin, tell my dad about it, and me and him are pretty good artists. So he mentions, draw this thing. I mean, right now, put the date down, put all the details you can, go to the opposite sides of the cabin and draw it, do it all yourself, and then we'll compare them. So what you've seen on the phone, I mean, we'll probably find it later, but the actual drawing, we can't find Nick's, of course. That's always how the story goes. But when we put them together, they're almost exactly perfect. They're bent in like the legs weren't facing the right way. They were kind of back end, like dog legs. And they had just, you can almost see claws, like a clawish hand, and just fur that was like dog fur, jet black, like wet dog, like it was slicked down, wet fur, and just jet black.
And that was the image you showed us earlier.
That was the image I showed you earlier,
And did both of you draw the same thing?
Exactly the same thing.
My two sons were over, and at that time I was divorced. We're getting shared custody. I got the kids 50% of the time, so they were over spending the night. And my kids are used to seeing. I mean, it's like we've seen lots of go outside and see UFOs all the time, and so they're pretty much over it. I got a communication from the same female, it was like 30-year-old female, and she said distinctly, it was Eric, come outside, we have something to show you. Or it might have been Eric, come outside, we have a show for you. I don't remember exactly how it was flip-flopped, but it was that in so many words. This was on 8/14/2005, and it was about 10:15 at night. And what I'm about to tell you, what we saw, was recorded by a gentleman in South St. Petersburg. He was outside drinking beer with his friends, and he ended up getting on some videotape of this. But he's never wanted to release the video for whatever reason. And so we went outside, and I said to Jeff and Matt, we were both standing on the sidewalk, and I knew exactly where to look. It was like I'm going to call that word again, push, like it was data, like where to stand, even though she definitely did not tell me where to stand. I knew exactly where to stand, did I not? Mm-hmm. I said, stand right here, look right up there. And what went by was like 5 minutes. Yeah. Matthew, because he was younger, he was like 12 years old, his attention span was a lot less. So Jeff hung out. Jeff, I felt like deep inside he wasn't going anywhere. He knew something was going to happen. Is that what I felt like?
Yeah.
I mean, was I right?
I liked it as a kid. I always stared at the sky.
Yeah. I mean, you were fixated. I mean, if I was your age and my dad was telling me that, I wouldn't have stood there more than 30 seconds.
Look up there, so.
Yeah, I was telling him to look up there. I knew something was going to happen. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I had no clue. Matt, a few minutes later, he goes, Dad. His words were, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going inside. He turns around, starts walking toward the house, and the last thing I remember, and it happened right then, as soon as Matt walked away. Up in the sky was these white spheres. They weren't orbs. They weren't. This is nothing but white circular. I mean, I figured they were like some kind of huge crafts flipped up, trying to form a cross. It was. They turned on 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 2 on each side, and it looks like this. This is not a photograph. I'm going to get to the reason why there's no photograph of this. Jeff immediately went and did this on Photoshop, and this is what we saw. And this is the trees on both sides, and us looking up at about. We're looking up at about
25 degrees.
Yeah, about 10 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And this is about 10:15 p.m. on 2005, and it was bright, and it was sharp, distinct, well-defined, huge. I would say probably.
You couldn't cover with your hand, pretty much.
Yeah, if you held a nickel out at hand's length, mm-hmm. That's how big these spheres. So I figured this might have been 5 miles long by a mile wide. I mean, is that even right?
It looked like it was in space.
It looked like it was in space.
So it was pretty big if we could see it at that distance. It was probably way bigger than that. Way bigger than that.
Okay,
probably
so
like 10 miles long.
Yeah, it was huge. It was just absolutely huge. I mean, I'm surprised I haven't heard other people talk about it.
It was like in the outer atmosphere. It was glowing on the atmosphere. That's how big it was.
It was for us. I got called out there to see it. I knew I was right there. And Matt, I yelled to Matt. Instantly, it just started turning on. I was like, Matt, get back here. You're missing it. And he's like, missing what, Dad? Where? I can't see it. And I was like, Matt, you're not going to see it looking at the numbers on the house. Meanwhile, I'm looking back up again. Turn to look at Matt again, look up. I said, get over here. Matt was like frozen. I mean, he was just like midsection frozen, would not take his eyes off the numbers on the front of the house. So I gave up on that. I don't know what was going on with him. He just would not turn around. He was just stuck. I mean, is that what he looked like?
Yeah.
I mean, stuck facing the house. Why would he not turn around? I think it was some kind of
I don't
control
know.
over him. But here, I'm going to get to the story that comes after this, and this is going to make sense why he was not able to see this. I reached down to pick up, I had a Sony video camera, a Highline one, about $1,500. It was about 5-6 years old, great shape. And I had a brand new Sony Mavica 5 megapixel, which cost me about $600 at the time. That's when cameras were still starting to come out, and it was a lot of money. That was not even 90 days old. When I reached down to pick that up, right when I was getting ready to reach down and pick that up, there was, right next to this cross, looked like an old-fashioned, I would let Jeff describe it, but there's nothing today that really describes it.
It
But
was
an
like
old,
a flash cube. I've seen a flash cube.
you've seen a flash cube before?
Yeah,
It looked like a really dark violet blue flash cube, brilliant, and it was to the left.
It's
right here.
way off to the left.
You think it's this farther
It
off?
flashed the whole sky on the left side.
I remember it being like right over here,
Yeah.
really close to it.
Well, it lit up the whole sky over there.
But when this thing went off, and this was definitely in outer space.
Mhm.
That was in outer space, and
Yeah.
that was brilliant. I mean, it was as big as one of these spheres. And this was perfect. It was perfectly defined, showing across. If that's what this is, I don't know if it's got, if it's related to Christianity or what. This has got nothing to do with being religious. This is what we saw. After that blue flash went off, which I believe it was some Star Wars system. And we had a colonel that, I'm not going to say where he works at, but he came to the house because I was on the internet and I just, I've been talking about little spots here and there of this stuff. So he spent 3.5, 4 hours
You
here.
didn't say what happened
Yeah, I
after the
did
flash
tell him.
cube. It
Yeah.
just
Well,
it
I told him
flicked
about
off
that, and I told him
afterwards.
I thought that was Star Wars.
Yeah.
The Star Wars. That's what I felt like from the day it happened, the minute it happened, and
Mhm.
he turned around looking. He wouldn't tell me what it was. He wouldn't say anything. Wouldn't give me any information. I mean, that's because he's in the middle. He's top brass, but he definitely whipped around and looked right at me when I said
Yeah.
that. So that made me think that's what it was. So
I didn't say after the flash cube or whatever it was, it went off. It lit up the whole sky behind it, and immediately afterwards, it just started flicking off all these lights like instantaneously.
going off like the same order they came
Yeah,
on, or
pretty
well,
much.
not same order, but they 1, 2,
They
other one,
flicked
other one.
off in variation, and they're just gone.
It was like somebody turning off fluorescent lights.
Yeah.
That's what it reminded me of.
But it happened within a second or two. They just
Yeah,
started
real quick. I mean, not like they had ballast problems,
Yeah.
but it almost reminded me of a fluorescent light turn on, like a fraction of a second before it gets
Mhm.
light. And it's okay. Well, I think everybody's got the idea of that. Now I'm walking back to the house. I pick up my little cardboard box, got all my cameras in there. Didn't get nothing. This is on Photoshop. Didn't get no proof of it, but got witness. And so walking back, I didn't get even to the front stairs yet. Matthew, I think, has already gone in the house. And I got this really like a feeling of really like something really bad happened. And well, actually, before this happened, when I went to pick up when I went down to pick up the cameras to take a picture of this, I forgot to say, I got a telepathic voice that said, from the same female, she said, "Eric, leave your gadgets at home. These signs are for you." That's what she said. And I thought it was kind of weird. I never say anything, "Oh my God, she just said something to me again." But that's what she said. And when it comes to you, it's almost like it's being talked to your subconscious, and then, I don't know, maybe there's another suggestion afterwards that says, "Keep this to yourself." Or she always, I never hear that word, but anybody watching this would probably say, "Well, why in the hell have you heard somebody say that right after? Why wouldn't you say that to somebody?" But, it's always later when I'm sitting there, I'm like, holy cow,
It's almost like your own thoughts.
But it's not my, your own voice is like a male voice. It's your voice in your
Yeah.
head. I mean, that's what my voice sounds like. I never hear anybody else's voice ever, except for the handful of times I've had a telepathic, voice, and it's this female. And it's a female of the gray that came into the room. when she was talking telepathically to me, I was like, holy cow, that's the voice I'm hearing. The very distinctive female. So I get to the door of the house, and I felt really bad, and I felt like somebody got hurt. I think that was my own feelings. And then I heard the voice say again. She said, "Eric, nobody got harmed, but we're not going to have any further communication until this is resolved." It might be one or two words off, but that was pretty much what she said. After that point, I have not had any, we've had different experiences, but I haven't had any direct communication.
There were a lot of different experiences after that, though.
Oh, yeah, but
Lots of them.
that was the last of my really clear telepathic. I've had a handful of experiences where,
Hasn't been resolved yet.
I guess, hasn't been resolved yet. So I get my take is that maybe the Air Force or somebody up there took a pop shot at them. For they lining up for us.
It appeared it's pretty much right over MacDill Air Force Base.
Oh yeah, this is like this is halfway between here and MacDill Air Force Base. I mean, this is almost over our property. It was 10 o'clock in the sky. It was aimed at us for us to see.
It could have came from there. That was pretty much the distance. It was off to the right, and MacDill was off to the left. So that where that flash cube happened, that's pretty much that same area.
Yeah.
Except the flash cube kind of looked like it was in space.
Yeah,
with
I believe it was a satellite or
yeah,
a Star Wars satellite.
It looked like it was in space with it. So, but still, it's kind of
okay. Let's move on. Let's move on to the next story because we want to save some time here. This is taking days. So let's go to the next experience. Was when we were at the cabin, and when I got in the vehicle. I remember getting the voice again. She told me to come to the Shell Mound Bridge. And that was a very short communication. And, whatever she says, I mean, it's like when she tells me to do something, unless it's really rubbing against something, like some friction, like, what happened when she told me to come back up to the house. I mean, come back up to the property, start a fight with your wife. It's almost like it's now later in life I know how hypnotic induction. If you look up at hypnotic induction, like maybe Darren Brown, he's a good example. They have examples on there of knocking people out using those, a certain phrase. And when I heard that, that's what. Anyways, that's
it
what
wouldn't have been too
reminds me.
hard because we were probably going to Shell Mound that night anyway. So
No, I don't think we were. We were out driving in the vehicle, and
well, we were looking for a good place to see stars, but it was.
but it always
cloudy.
seems that way. But the voice, when the voice comes over, it's almost like, okay, here's the voice here, and it's
that's what I
don't
mean.
share. You know what it is? It might be an embedded hypnotic suggestion from probably 30 years ago that whenever you get a telepathic communication, don't talk about anybody, don't say anything to anybody. It's for you. That's what I'm thinking, and it's not. I don't remember, but maybe it's embedded in my. Just like a lot of people say about mind control with the government, and like trigger words, makes you do something that's pre-programmed. I'm not saying that's what it is, but that's what somebody else can draw a conclusion. I'm still drawing conclusions after all these years. So here we are going to Shell Mound. This is 140 miles from here, near the property and hunting cabin that we all go to. So here we are. We go to the bridge, and it's dark. And long story short, we immediately start seeing UFOs just flying across the horizon. I mean, speeds were just unimaginable. One side of the sky to the other, just in 2 seconds, and then up and then down, and I was getting this feeling that these were black triangles. We've seen about 3 or 4 black triangles in a rectangular shape at the property. That's another story that we haven't talked about that I probably won't bring up maybe some other time. But that's when my buddy Billy and I saw a rectangular craft over the top of the cabin. We watched it from 9 o'clock at night till 2 in the morning. It never left. But we never did anything. I never took one of my lasers and shined it at or provoked it or tried to take a picture of it. And it was just too dark, but you could see the outline. It was right over the cabin. But there's strange instances like that where, why wouldn't we do so? Why did we just go to bed? This is strange. But anyways, back, go ahead.
The one on the bridge that was really colored. You got that on film with an old one, and it was like multicolored, and it wasn't shooting across the sky. It was stationary for a while, but it was constantly moving different directions back, and then it started coming towards us, and then my brother, he started freaking out. He was 12 at the time, and then he started freaking out about it because this ball of light was coming at us, all different rainbow colors. My dad's filming it while my brother's freaking out, and I may because my brother was freaking out, but then it started taking off in the other direction again. It never came. But
Well, yeah, here's the way I remember it was we all that saw UFOs. Actually, this Shell Mound event happened before the cross because my video camera was still working.
I think it was.
Going back to the cross in the front yard, that night I went to turn on my video camera and my camera, and both of them were not working. I changed the batteries out, did everything. Neither one would power up. And I'm like, what the? I tried charging them. That night I got a message from her. Here's another telepath. I forgot to tell this on the last story. She said, don't worry, Eric, we'll make it up to you. As far as they broke my cameras. They did not want that cross documented by us. The only thing that exists is Jeff's Photoshop that he did right away. You can't see the trees on there. But absolutely, I had $1,600 worth of equipment broken, and I sold them both on eBay, and even back then on eBay a month later, I wrote on eBay, if whoever buys these, I like new cameras for junk, I sold them both for $30 each. Yeah, and I wrote on there, if you ever find out what's wrong with it, let me know, because I was filming an unidentified flying object. And okay, so going back to Shell Mound, Matt was flipping out. I got the push feeling like, okay, we're going to come and meet, and the craft is going to land on the little cul-de-sac right to our right. And it was a huge black triangle. It was an image that was put in my mind. And then Matt, I said, and then all of a sudden the craft, the biggest one, was coming at us so fast. I mean, if you ever see a police car coming at you at 100 miles an hour on a two-lane road, it looks like it was floating, and it looks like it's got a tint to it. It's coming. And that's when I said, okay, guys, they're going to come over there, and they're going to hover right over the beach, right here, the cul-de-sac. Matt started. He was sitting on his rear end on the deck and he started kicking his feet and said, "Dad, tell them I don't want them to come. We don't want them to come." And I could see it. It was anxiety. I mean, Matt's a little bit different personality than Jeff. He doesn't take this stuff back then too well. Now he's fine with it, but he was causing a lot of problems. So the craft stopped, and when it stopped, I thought to myself, oh my God, I got my video camera. All this time with me, I had my video camera. Back then I was not really into really trying to document it. I grabbed the video camera, got it up, and the thing, when it was stopped, it was changing all these colors.
Yeah, like rainbow oscillating, yeah.
Yeah, it looked like a kaleidoscope thing. So I'm zooming in. I got that on videotape. I had the videotape. I found it finally downstairs. So I have that. Maybe I can send that to you, James. It's only probably a 30-second clip or whatever before it flew off.
Yeah, but you could see an obvious moving, like different than a plane or anything. It was actually doing straight turns and all that.
9-degree turns. Yeah. And, it was crazy fast too. And by the way, before I forget, that night, a woman in California, and she got it on videotape, and it is exactly the same thing I got on videotape. I'll never forget. It was on CNN. Woman photographs UFO over the ocean.
Somebody saw this too, didn't they?
Yes, a guy downtown's got it on videotape. He's outside drinking beer with his friends.
Somebody around here got it on videotape.
But he won't release the videotape. I had somebody, an investigator, a long time ago, heard about this story on the internet when I just posted it to somebody. He said this is the first. He documented this as the first. What's
religious symbol. He
first
took
religious
symbol,
connotation or something, or
like
some kind of
Constantine thing
to a human from extraterrestrials. But see, we don't even know if these are extraterrestrials or not. He jumped to that conclusion. I'm not going to say who it was, but he's in the United Kingdom.
He took it as a religious symbol.
Yeah, he's in England, and so. Okay, now here's the hook for the whole thing. Here's the clincher that really ties it all together. When that craft stopped, and Matt was having a lot of problems about the craft coming, the woman's voice said to me, she said three things to me. The third thing, I can never remember what it was. I forgot it a half an hour later after that, because I probably didn't really hear it. But she said, "Eric, we're not going to come over there. We can't cause anybody anxiety or violate their free will." Mm-hmm. Now, I know a lot of people are going to think, oh, well, that sounds demonic and all that. I've had people say that to me. It's not demonic. They had plenty of chances to get us alone and do something. They've come into my bedroom once, and that was the only time I have a witness with me. But
it's universal law. Can't violate someone's free will.
Back when this happened,
everywhere.
That's right. This is whether you're benevolent or benevolent beings. I think the whole thing is about the universe is, anybody who's a higher species than a human can't violate can't enter your life without your permission.
Yep.
Whether it's demonic or somebody who's that's my theory on it. I'm sure a lot of people think that too if they study this stuff long enough. But the reason I think, what we found. Remember what we found out later on about why we had this signal by a really well-known psychic with PhD doctors. All of us at that. Oh, you weren't at the table. I told you about
I
that.
don't remember that.
We asked why. This has been puzzling me for years. I said, why were we shown this? I thought it was because I had a lot of friends at the time saying, "God, these stories you got,
They sound angelic.
these are what the Bible talk about demonic and all that." And I really started second guessing all this. I said, "Is this demonic?" And I think that they chose this to show it to us because it's a religious symbol that we're familiar with. But they said that this sign was here to bring Jeffrey and I closer together. And I would say if we probably didn't have this, all these events we had were just spotted. This was something you and I shared really. I mean, this was powerful.
Yeah.
And we talk about this all the time. It
You
really
can't
did.
mistake that. You can't mistake that.
If this didn't happen after all this time, it probably would, because then families, these kind of things tear families apart. It's got my brother and I fighting, all these years, but Jeffrey and I, we have a common bond because we both laid our eyes on this, and these were no airplanes, these were no firefly. It was crazy. This is the real
We
deal.
live next to McDill. We see airplanes.
Yeah, we see them all the
every
time.
day. That was not an airplane.
Yeah.
It was way too big.
Yeah, a 10-year-old, a 5-year-old could see this. It was a big event. But that's what we got from a psychic, and I got that actually on video. I got a 100-pound oak table levitating off the floor, and that thing was moving around the floor, and whoever on the other side was being directed with the information that knew about this, and that table went right into my stomach as an indicator of yes. And that's when I knew that this was, this was done, as a big, an attempt. These beings are, they evidently monitor everything. That's what I think. But Matt was not able to see this cross before we went to the bridge. When they found out that Matt was getting a lot of anxiety, and they were violating, and there's another violating his free will, and there's another third one. I don't think I'll ever remember what it was, but it was very similar to matches up to 3. But Matt was sent away from this cross. He was not allowed to see it because it caused him anxiety. And as soon as he turned around, he got frozen toward the house, looking at the numbers on the house. He couldn't move. I remember he was standing like this, in midair like that, and he was stopped. And no matter what I said about how much I screamed at him, "Get back here and see this," they just made sure he couldn't see it. So those are the 2 stories that I wanted to add to it. And that concludes, I don't think I've had any more, that's a handful of telepathic, clear-cut communications that tie a lot of this together. And it's, it doesn't, it's not all the things that we've seen, but those are a lot of the major ones. So now this is just something I took off the TV after a few years gone by. I just see, either on the internet or a TV show that somebody, they had a close encounter with some being, and they look very similar to what Jeff saw. Now this one matches almost exactly, except Jeff's didn't have any spines on its back, and Jeff's was not spotted. This one appears to be spotted. This is in 1995, and it's no features on the face, and this is not at our place. This is at some other state. Look at the back feet. 3 claws on the feet, like backward dog legs. That's just amazing. But I believe this is the Kokopelli, which is American Indians are seeing. Now, this is a sighting that was made in 1995, the same as one as that other one that you just saw. And this is, this is put on like some kind of a video game for kids, and this is supposed to be some famous chupacabra sighting from August 1995. And then there's the action figure of it, but it looks really similar to what my son and his friend saw. There's another one that somebody walked up on a dirt road at night, and this being was standing in front of him with 3 hands, 3 fingers, no features on the face, big almond eyes. I mean, it's, you know, noteworthy. There's a second witness they had with them. That's what they saw. Supposedly artist drew it. There's one. There's very similar. You know, that could be the Kokopelli. It's got spines on its back. This is another separate event where somebody had witnessed it. And if you look up in Wikipedia, that's the closest thing I could find to, you know, to what people have been seeing supposedly for probably hundreds of years. American Indian Hopis, they call it the Kokopelli. But it's supposed to bring you good luck, and it plays like flute music. But did you have any good luck after that sighting?
Don't recall.
Well, I know it changed Nick. Nick was in shock when I picked him up. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, he was shaking, didn't talk all weekend after that. So
If anything, it gave him bad luck. I don't think he had anything good happen after that event at all.